Hello and welcome to Why Wasn't It Better? I'm your host, Patrick Darms.
And I'm your co-host, Anton Paras.
On this episode, we're discussing a film that I'm guessing most people have not seen, Cahill U.S. Marshal, one of the lesser-known late-career westerns from the one and only John Wayne. By 1973, Wayne was aging rapidly, physically declining, and trying to adapt to a movie landscape that had changed dramatically around him. The result is a strange film caught between eras, part old-school Wayne Western, part darker family drama, part attempt to keep up with the grittier tone of 1970s cinema. There are pieces of a better movie here. George Kennedy makes for a strong villain. The premise has potential, and Wayne himself actually gives a more subdued performance than you might expect. But the pacing drags, the emotional core never fully lands, and the whole production has the assembly line feel of a genre running out of steam. So why didn't this work? Why does it feel so minor compared to Wayne's classics with John Ford and Howard Hawks? And was the real issue the movie itself, or the fact that by this point, the Duke simply belonged to another era? Anton, it's good to be back with you recording.
Well, it's always a pleasure, of course, and it's a very, very fun new layer when we start covering John Wayne films. I think it was last season we had our first.
That's right. We talked about Rio Bravo with Cam Sully on his first appearance
Oh, yes,
on the
friend of the
pod.
show, Cam Sully.
Friend of the show. And that was a lot of fun. All of us really liked that.
Yeah, Cahill U.S. Marshal. Really rolls off the tongue.
Great title, yeah. Had you heard of this one?
No, I had not.
I hadn't either. You know, when it gets to the John Wayne stuff from the 70s, I would say I've seen a few of them. This was not one of them. I keep confusing some of the 70s stuff with, you know, the Dirty Harry ripoff that he did, which is, frankly, going to be probably pretty hilarious when we cover it, because it is a terrible movie.
Yeah, that's a talk about stepping into maybe a different kind of film. But I think that 1973, or even just like thinking about the 70s, like people's tastes are pretty different. And
Oh, yeah.
the Duke, I think one thing that confused me was he seemed to be wearing the same outfit that he had in a lot of his more classic westerns. And I think that
Yeah,
is
just a bit. Yeah.
at a certain point, I just kind of asked myself, like, when does the audience just say, wasn't he this character in another film?
Oh, I think they did, because this movie, as far as I know, made no money. We'll talk about this.
Yeah, there's quite a few things about this film that I'm sure audiences will definitely be perplexed as how does such a legendary actor put out, I don't know how to say it. It's just not I don't want to bury the lead. It's not a bad film by any means, but
No, it's not. It's actually better than I thought it would be.
But I think that there is definitely a question of, has the genre outlasted its popularity by 1973?
I think by most accounts it did. Now, you still had Clint Eastwood, who was relatively early in his career, and he would continue to do westerns up until the 90s. But, of course, as you know, the year before this, Clint Eastwood, it's a film we already mentioned a few minutes ago, Dirty Harry. Eastwood was already doing other things besides westerns.
Right. Now, even if, of course, a prolific actor-director is pushing a genre past its, I don't know, ripeness, is it any more different than now if we get Chris Hemsworth still playing Thor for the next 20 years?
You could probably draw a lot of similarities between the two. I mean, it's certainly not controversial to say that by 1973, the Western genre was past its peak. Every genre experiences this, right? I would say it had reached its zenith in the 50s, as did John Wayne. I mean, that was the peak of his career, right? That's when he was probably at his most popular. But he worked up until pretty much when he became too ill to continue working. He died in 1979. I think his final film was 1976, The Shootist. He was terminally ill by that point. But we're getting ahead of ourselves a bit here. Cahill U.S. Marshal is the film that we're covering today. I expect this to be one of our least popular episodes, frankly, just because I am sure a lot of people just haven't seen this.
Yeah. a lot of the buzz around it online is very below lukewarm.
Yeah, it's certainly not one of his critically acclaimed films. It was released on July 11th, 1973 by Bat Jack Productions. It was distributed by Warner Brothers, directed by Andrew V. McLagan. The screenplay was written by Harry Julian Fink and Rita M. Fink. The story is credited to Barney Slater. It stars John Wayne, George Kennedy, Gary Grimes, Neville Brand, Clay O'Brien, and Marie Windsor. The budget, here's a first for the podcast, Anton. Unknown. Could not find any information about how much it cost to produce this movie. Couldn't have been much, because the box office was only $3.1 million, which is $23 million adjusted for inflation. It has a 64% Rotten Tomatoes score. The summary of the plot is a U.S. Marshal named J.D. Cahill, played by John Wayne, neglects his two sons and finds them mixed up with an outlaw, played by George Kennedy, in a bank robbery. Anton, why did we choose this movie? We picked it out of a hat.
Yeah, let's just that was the reason, basically. But why are we covering a John Wayne film? I think maybe that's the greater reason.
Whether you like him or not, he is an American icon. And it took us a while to get to our first Wayne film last season with Rio Bravo. And this is all a suggestion from my dad. So I have to give him credit for this. Because he very rightfully pointed out he's one of the biggest movie stars of all time. We talked about this on the Rio Bravo episode with Cam, right? He's easily one of the 5 biggest movie stars of all time, right?
Yeah, easily. And I think what clearly defines American film history, like, you can't talk about film history without talking about John Wayne. So
right,
big enough reason enough to cover his films.
But globally well known too, not just in the United States. I mean, you go to pretty much any corner of the world, he's recognizable. Even if you haven't seen any of his stuff, you probably know who he is just based on his image.
Yeah,
he was the face of an entire genre. I mean, you can't think of Westerns without thinking of him.
Yeah.
So any movie that he was in, there would have been some degree of hype for. I don't know about this one. But the reason why I kind of picked this one out of a hat, though, is I don't just want to cover his famous movies. We started off with a pretty famous one, Rio Bravo. I deliberately wanted to do something that just wasn't as well known. Whether or not that was an intelligent decision on my part, we'll find out over the course of this recording.
Right. I think it's really interesting where even when you mentioned the name of the film, like, hey, we're going to cover this, I really had never heard of it before.
I hadn't either, because a lot of his stuff was on TV when I was a kid, like whether it was AMC or Turner Classic Movies. Like, I saw a lot of John Wayne movies as a kid. My dad is a John Wayne fan. My grandfather was. I watched a bunch of his stuff with them. This was never one of them.
This wasn't one that I remember seeing on TV more often. But I think, like, there's kind of this sticking point. It's, if you'd shown me a clip from this film, or you'd shown me an image of John Wayne and his outfit in this film and told me it was like it was from a classic John Wayne film, I would have believed you. But I think that's what this film kind of captures, a bit of that aesthetic.
If you were watching it when we would have been watching it in the 90s or early 2000s on a standard definition TV,
yeah,
I would agree with you. Seeing this now, HD, it's like, this is not a classic John Wayne film.
This is not. No, this is not.
Yeah, he was very much in the final phase of his career. We mentioned Eastwood. There were still other Westerns going on too, but they were what you alluded to, right? Moving in a different direction. I'm thinking of The Wild Bunch, McCabe and Mrs. Miller. Much grittier, much more, frankly, violent. I mean, in 1966, the censorship got very much relaxed. And not just Westerns, but films in general began to feel and look more like a modern movie with profanity, enhanced violence, nudity. That became more and more of a common thing.
And, like, listen, if you look at what was popular in 73, the kind of films, even like the top 10 at the box office, such a different genre.
What was top? The Way We Were?
The Exorcist.
Oh, right. Good point.
And like even beyond that, there are a lot of films that are more like gritty dramas. I think Serpico released in 1973.
Yes.
People really wanted things that were a bit more grounded or reflected like the themes of like the grounded drama of like home life.
Yeah, John Wayne was a man at a time by this point. It
But
received the worst
yeah,
reviews of any film in his career going back to The Conqueror in 1956, which is absolutely a movie that we need to cover.
I'm so ready for it.
Have you seen it?
Oh yeah.
I have not.
Yeah.
I've seen bits and pieces of it on YouTube, and it's like, oh boy.
Yeah, it's a trip. It's a trip.
I almost want to make that a season finale. Like, would that be appropriate?
I think it'd be a good time.
It would be a good time. That's also a film? I doubt many people have seen that at this point, right? I mean, it's
no. It's look, the only reason I've seen it is for the obvious reasons.
A film so toxic it literally gave people cancer.
Yeah, it's a meme-worthy film if there's ever been one.
We'll get there. I'm ready for it too. I'm laughing just thinking about it. So this film, Cahill U.S. Marshal, it made about $3 million, pretty modest even by 1970 standards. And then John Wayne himself said about this, quote, "It just wasn't a well done picture," end quote. So yeah, this wasn't a success story, but again, I have to say, I don't think this was good, but I was pleasantly surprised by it. I was expecting this to be terrible, and it's not. It's not a terrible movie.
It's not terrible. John Wayne probably still made $1 million. It's okay. Everyone went home happy.
I think in the grand scheme of things, if you were to rank Wayne's movies, which we couldn't realistically do because there's no way in hell either of us are going to watch all of his movies. I mean, this I've seen worse, a lot worse than this. Like The Conqueror, which I haven't even seen, and I'm willing to bet a mortgage payment it's worse than this.
It's worse, but
funnier,
arguably more entertaining because of how funny it is.
Ooh, I might lose that bet. Good thing it was only with myself.
Well, you got to crush your enemies, Pilgrim.
What's all this talk about Ronald Reagan being just an actor? He could run a state.
You got to hear the lamentations of their women.
Don't call him a Comanche. He's a half of one. But, Dad, he doesn't look like a Comanche. He looks like a man in makeup. That's because he is.
Ma'am.
Oh,
you got to tip your hat to ladies.
Well, before we go over the very, very brief production history, it is time for everyone's favorite unnecessary segment of the pod, the 6 Degrees of Warren Beatty's sex life. Because somehow, no matter the movie, we have a prevailing theory that connects everything back to Warren Beatty. This one is pretty straightforward, Anton. John Wayne is the connector. He had to be. Via Anne Margaret. Okay. So the same year this came out, in 1973, John Wayne was in another film called The Train Robbers with Anne Margaret, who, of course, was one of Warren Beatty's flings.
Good way to put it.
Yes. So when I was trying to find the next John Wayne movie to cover, it was a toss-up between this and The Train Robbers. I just kind of flipped a coin for this one. So we could have been talking about The Train Robbers right now, Anton, but we're not. We're stuck talking about Cahill U.S. Marshal. I don't know if that's a win or a loss for us. Probably a loss, because we could have talked about Anne Margaret instead of George Kennedy.
Well, why don't we go ahead and just enter into the Technicolor Valley that is Cahill U.S. Marshal?
Well, why don't you go ahead and read the several lines of production history for us?
Aye, aye, Pilgrim. So production information on this film is pretty scarce, as Pat has mentioned. The original working title was Wednesday Morning, and directed by Andrew V. McLaglen, who by this point was a veteran collaborator for Wayne, as well as Westerns in general. He was essentially Wayne's proxy, a yes man in the best sense of the word. He was employed by Batjack Productions, and Wayne trusted him to bring his vision to the screen. This was his 5th time working with Wayne after McClintock, Hellfighters, The Undefeated, and Chisholm.
Shout out to McClintock. Are you familiar with that movie?
I am not.
Do yourself a favor, Google it right now, and look at the poster.
Right.
It will tell you all you need to know.
Let's just take a quick peek.
And if anyone's listening right now, do the same. Just look up McClintock.
That's great. That's
That is
great.
the actual poster of the movie. And for those who maybe can't look this up right now, on the image on the poster is John Wayne with a woman across his knee, and he is slapping her butt. That's a real thing. It's a real movie that was made.
Oh,
That is
that's a
on our
great.
list to cover too.
That looks like it's from a great era.
It looks like a real winner.
So McLaglen would later go on to direct Joe Don Baker and Mitchell, which was famously lampooned on Mystery Science Theater.
Mitchell. That's one of the
I
better
remember.
Mystery Science Theater episodes, right?
Man, I do love having that on.
Mitchell.
And it was shot on location in Durango, Mexico, and principal photography took place in November and December of 1972. So that's it for our production history. Promo break. As always, we thank you for listening. If you're liking the podcast and haven't already done so, please hit that follow or subscribe button. We encourage you to leave comments wherever you're listening or watching. You can follow us on any major social media platform, whether Instagram, X, and best of all, Letterboxd, where you can see our full list of films that we intend to cover. And if you really like what we're doing and want to throw a few dollars our way, we do have a Patreon. There you can support the show, get access to episodes a full week early and ad-free, plus access to bonus content, which we recently revamped. So links are, of course, in the description. Please and thank you.
I was just looking at McLagan's filmography, like the rest of it. He actually did some stuff that I've seen. You ever heard of The Wild Geese?
Yes.
With Roger Moore and Richard Harris and those guys? Mm-hmm. He did that. He did The Sea Wolves, also starring Roger Moore. North Sea Hijack, also starring Roger Moore. I guess Roger Moore liked this guy. And if Roger Moore liked him, he's probably a good guy. And here's one for you. He directed a film in 1989 called Return from the River Kwai, but it is not a sequel to Bridge on the River Kwai. Have you heard of this?
I've never heard of this.
I mean, it can't be good, right? No.
I was just looking at this, total aside. 1973 has, I wouldn't say it's in my top 10, but it's definitely in like my top 25 films. Day of the Jackal.
Oh, that's an amazing movie.
Yeah.
I want to cover that just because it's an amazing... That is one of my favorite movies as well.
Yeah.
You ever read the book, too? The book's incredible.
Oh, yeah. It's so influential.
Who wrote that? Frederick Forsyth?
Yes. And it's just...
Man, great shout. Day of the Jackal.
I'm just thinking about that film. Like, a film like that's coming out in 73. It's like genre disparity so crazy.
How did we not mention The Sting? That movie's also one of my favorites.
Legendary.
Wow, better year than we're thinking here.
Well, I think that's the interesting part is this is when you get the 1970s are a bit of a blur because I think a lot of people were enjoying the disco era, the end of the
That was
60s.
Later though. That was no, the disco era was the later in the 70s.
But it was Studio 54, is that still thriving?
There's no way that's still around, right? That died in the 80s, right? I would think.
Yeah. I'm sure if you go now, it's just
no, the 70s, I know what you mean. It's an interesting decade in film to study because you have, like any other decade, right? You have some of the greatest films of all time come out. You get a bunch of crap. You get a very confused studio system because it's basically when the golden age of Hollywood is over. Mm-hmm. The old studio system is getting replaced by what's known as like the new Hollywood movement. You get, of course, guys like Francis Coppola, Martin Scorsese, Steven Spielberg, Brian De Palma, George Lucas, obviously. And the film industry radically changes in the second half of the decade with Jaws and then Star Wars. And it goes into a completely different stratosphere, right?
Yeah, and there's a lot of films that we're getting that are either breaking down genres that were once so popular in the golden age of Hollywood. You're getting more films that are a bit more grounded, maybe even getting into themes that are just legendary for their genres today, which Day of the Jackal, of course, The Sting. And then talking about like genre breakdowns, this was the year that Westworld gets released, which
is a terrible film.
Yeah, very.
What would you say the most influential film of 73 was? It's got to be The Exorcist, right?
Absolutely. Like,
Yeah.
hands down.
We covered the second one, unfortunately. Check out that episode.
Yeah.
Exorcist
Check out
2.
that episode for sure. Go check out Live and Let Die.
Oh, yeah. Way more fun. Yeah. So the 70s is actually a decade you and I haven't done too many films from, and we're obviously trying to change that because there's so much fascinating stuff that we can actually cover. Let's talk Cahill U.S. Marshal. Why wasn't it better? Number one reason, the lowest hanging fruit. John Wayne was too old. He was 65 years old when this was filmed. I did not know this until I did the research. By this point in his career, he was working off of one lung. He had had one lung removed via surgery, not accidentally. He was suffering from emphysema in his remaining lung. And I mean, he was so weak, he had to use a stepladder to climb onto his horse for a lot of filming of this. And he doesn't look good.
He does not. I think you made a really good point around in standard definition. Probably this film looks a bit better, but in HD, it's pretty clear. John Wayne's been around the block.
He can't move like he could.
No disrespect.
A lot of people would mean disrespect. A lot of people hate him.
Well, yes.
Understandably so. He was apparently not a very nice guy in real life to a lot of people. He was a nice guy to some people.
Yeah.
And not others.
We'll leave it up to
your own reading on that.
Yeah, yeah. Do your own research, people. Go read your own interviews of John Wayne and Playboy.
Yes. We're going to bring that up later, the Playboy interview that he gave in 1971. Yeah. Just talk about a man at a time. Now, for this film, they do try to address it in the story. You know, they incorporate his age into the character, but it just doesn't make a lot of sense for him to be doing what his character is doing. You know, in the very beginning of the film,
like literally the opening of the film.
Yeah, how many people does he shoot? I wrote down 5, but I don't think it's that many because he ends up capturing a couple of them, right? But they don't show it because clearly Wayne wasn't capable of selling that physically.
It's the most, probably like the best action scene in the film.
But it also ends with a freeze frame, and then it cuts to the title of the film.
Yeah.
Where he is two-handing a pistol and a rifle. He's surrounded by bad guys on both sides and somehow gets out of it, but the film doesn't show it because I'm going to assume just Wayne couldn't do it.
Well, he's surrounded. He has this super heightened senses to detect if someone's far in the distance.
The Spidey sense.
Yeah, he knows if people are hiding. He's a sitting duck, by the way. So he has to be a crack shot if he's going to defend himself against all these people, which of course he is. He's John Wayne.
Yeah, that's true. I also wanted to highlight this film watching it in HD because goddamn can you see the stunt doubles.
People getting thrown left and right. A lot stunt doubles are getting paid today.
And of course, there's nothing wrong with using stunt doubles. But when when your lead actor is too old and too ill to do a lot of the basic action stuff, you have to wonder why it was happening in the first place. I mean, I'm thinking of Roger Moore in A View to a Kill, where you're just like, this just wasn't. It's a flaw in the film that it becomes insurmountable. Like this alone, I think, would prevent this from ever being a great film, if nothing else.
It's just a weird casting decision because the role probably calls for someone who's a bit more able-bodied, and John Wayne was
probably not. You think?
Yeah, John Wayne was not.
No, and during the filming of this, he learned that his friend John Ford was dying of cancer. Wayne it forced him to consider his own mortality, according to the research. I mean, you'd think having one of your lungs removed would also cause that.
Right.
So Ford died in August of 1973, right after this film comes out, and John Wayne tells reporters, quote, "I'm pretty much living on borrowed time," end quote. He privately admitted that he felt like giving up during the film. He stopped caring about this film halfway through the production when he learned about his, friend John Ford dying. So we've been pretty harsh on John Wayne so far. I will now say something positive about him. I actually think his performance in this is pretty good. He's doing a lot of pretty subtle acting. he
I'm trying to
sometimes
think.
doesn't get the credit he deserves. I think in the right role, he's pretty good at dramatic acting. I think he's good here. I actually
Yeah,
liked his performance. The physical stuff is what it is.
I think that he shows his chops for sure. Do I think it's? I don't think it's necessarily the most like. It's not the most emotional stuff I've seen, but
No.
I think that he knows how to turn it up, especially when it gets to scenes like with him and his sons, for example.
Yeah, and the film does, I think, to its credit, a little bit of a mystery where midway through the film, you're not sure if he realizes what's going on with his eldest son. And you're like, oh man, could he be this clueless? But Wayne is clearly incorporating that mystery into his performance, which I think works
Yeah,
well for the character.
yeah, and he was that clueless.
A little bit, yeah. He eventually came round on it.
Yeah, clueless or in denial.
Both.
Yeah.
All of the above. So this really was one of his last performances. After this, he would appear in McHugh. Oh, that's the Dirty Harry movie I'm thinking of. McHugh. A film called Brannigan. That's the one where he goes to England and teams up with Richard Attenborough. Not kidding. Not very good. He's in the True Grit sequel called Rooster Cogburn. Also not very good. And then The Shootist was his last film, which I actually think is pretty good. And then he of course, died in 1979. But I know you're a big True Grit fan. I'm guessing you're not a Rooster Cogburn fan.
No.
Have you seen Brannigan, the one where he goes to the UK?
I have seen Brannigan. The talk about that's a different film.
He was just old. He was old and sick, and he looked like it.
Yeah.
How long can you keep doing this? I mean, I give him credit for working.
Yeah, and like it's interesting because we see a lot of parallels even nowadays of just older actors that are still working. They take on different roles where you could actually just even draw a ton of comparisons to John Wayne's role here. I mean, look at the roles Denzel's taking. Like, if it's not like a big film, it's kind of, there are a lot of sometimes smaller films like the Equalizer series.
I like those films, the Equalizers.
Yeah, but it just kind of fits Denzel now, right? It's not physically demanding, but it works on a bit of his strengths.
Did this film work on Wayne's strengths?
Being a Western icon, yeah.
Well, let's talk about the next reason why this wasn't better than, which is the script. Because this does something a little bit different than a lot of your typical John Wayne Westerns, which it leans heavily into the family drama angle. A lawman whose sons have gone astray. The plot of this is basically Cahill. He's on the trail of some escaped bank robbers, right? But he doesn't realize that his two sons helped rob the bank. One of his sons is, 17? The other one is like 11, 10, 11?
Yeah.
Now, on paper, I think that's an interesting premise. It's a little bit different.
It is a huge parallel to the like family dramas or more grounded dramas, but then, of course, layering that into a Western backdrop.
Do you agree it's an interesting premise?
I do. I think it's pretty interesting.
Now, the execution.
A little silly.
Yeah, a lot of the emotional stuff doesn't land for me. I think the pacing doesn't help it either. It is...
Yeah. The dialogue doesn't really help either.
There's uneven dialogue. I liked some of the dialogue, and other scenes I didn't. I know what they were trying to do with Wayne's character, which they weren't trying to make him just a hero for you to root for unequivocally, right? He's a kind of a jerk to his sons.
Oh, yeah.
He's negligent. He's absent. He's not around. He's out working all the time.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to say is I can understand why his sons don't feel a lot of affection for him. He's never around.
Yeah, and it's a bit of that. It's a whole metaphor, right? Like there has to be a bit more just being there for your kids, and that's the whole metaphor. Otherwise, they're going to start helping bank robbers.
They are going to start helping bank robbers, and I think that's probably one of the flaws with this script. Danny goes to the extreme to get back at his old man, right?
Yeah.
First of all, I don't think the actor playing Danny is good enough to make it work. His name's Gary Grimes. No offense, but I don't know if we're supposed to be sympathetic to his sons. Now, you can be sympathetic to the younger one just because he really is a young kid.
Right, he doesn't know, but like the eldest son, you're questioning it a bit. It's like you're pretty complicit in this.
That's the thing. Is like how do you go from my dad isn't around to I'm going to participate in an armed robbery that results in the murder of two people? Because here's the thing, it's not like Marshall Cahill abandoned his kids. He was out working. He left them in what looks like a pretty stable situation.
He's widowed, of course. So
right.
I think like maybe that's a part of it, is that the kids really do feel abandoned. But I totally agree with you. Why does it then push to, well, I'm going to have to join the dark side?
Yeah, how do we get to I'm going to participate in a bank robbery? Now, I understand he's kind of a dumbass and he gets duped by George Kennedy and the gang, right?
Right.
They mislead him in a lot of different ways, but that makes me less sympathetic for him because you're asking me to root for someone. Not root for someone. That's not the right way to put it.
To be more sympathetic, probably.
It's hard to be sympathetic to someone so stupid.
And, George Kennedy does a really good job of just playing with their emotions, of course.
He does. George Kennedy's great.
Yeah.
Probably the best thing about this film.
Yeah. But
Danny also faces no consequences for his actions.
No, which is probably one of the more annoying things about the film. Even like on paper, you just kind of look at it and say, then it's fine. They reconcile and it's fine.
Now, he's obviously remorseful about being mixed up in the bank robbery. Like it is odd, but he doesn't seem that bothered by the fact that two people get murdered.
Yeah, Daniel's a bit of a psycho.
I would say, yeah.
Probably a lot more there than the films.
Yeah, I think a more intelligent film would have played more with that. I can see why Wayne was dissatisfied with the script. I think a more complex, intelligent movie would have delved more into the complicity of Danny. And at the end of the movie, he's just fully redeemed. And he's like, you don't have to get in trouble.
Yeah, you're fine.
There's no witnesses.
The other side of it, a better film, of course, you're able to really show why the sons act the way they do. Whether it's either more of Cahill being a jerk or more of the storyline to get to where it is now. But I think if there is a bit of an assumption that you just know that they got to this point because of how they were feeling. And I just don't think that's enough.
No, it's not. It's not innovative enough. One thing I found really funny, when Cahill and his half Native American friend Lightfoot find those four guys in the woods and they arrest them.
Mm-hmm.
They suspect them being the bank robbers. This cracked me up. Remember, his justification is an axe can do just as much damage as a sledgehammer to a bank door. It's like,
I don't know about that.
And here's the thing: this is
your job.
This is where this film it has the parts of a more interesting film. I actually think the bad guys' plan to rob the bank is pretty clever.
Yeah,
how they're never going to get suspected of it because the authorities think that they're in jail the whole time.
Yeah.
I wonder if other films have copied that because that's a pretty unique, that's a pretty original plan for this kind of a movie.
Yeah,
that's
a different heist movie entirely.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. The point you made around the pacing too, I think, really doesn't do any favors for the film. There's not a ton of tension.
No, I think the first 20, 25 minutes are good. Where you get the barn fire, you get the bank robbery. It starts off really good, I think, and then it slows down.
Honestly, the opening had a lot of promise. I'm like, all right, we're gonna get this.
Yeah. You get some Django Unchained style shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's where I think the next reason why this wasn't better. It feels outdated.
Mm-hmm.
It really did feel like a cookie cutter assembly line quality to it that happened to a lot of Western movies. Look, we don't know the budget. I'm going to guess it was $1 million, maybe $2 million.
Dude, I mean, it had to at least been, I'm going to guess 1.3 because, well, actually, shoot, how much salary does John Wayne demand? Because It's got to be to make sense if he demands at least $1 million. Even then,
I think since this was made by his production company, he was probably counting on box office points. But this is a clear step or two below what you would see in something made by John Ford or Howard Hawks. And again, nothing against Victor McLaglen, but this looks like the B team. Did you notice? I don't know if this was the version we watched on streaming or if it was intended to be like this. I think it was intended. A lot of scenes end by just fading to black.
Well, it must have been intentional because it's pretty consistent.
That's much more common with something you would see in the 40s or 50s. By 1973, films were not doing that.
No. You know what else wasn't as popular? Wipe transitions.
Is there a wipe transition in this?
There's like one.
Okay, I was going to say, I thought I remembered one, but yeah, that was uncommon. It just feels outdated.
It does.
Like, it's kind of like the criticisms that were leveled against the original Airport. They're like, this film comes out in 1970. It looks like something from the 50s. Same deal with this.
Yeah, and I don't know if you just bog it down to laziness or just this is enough. This is enough in the film that we can put it out.
I don't think it was necessarily laziness, but I think it's just more like Wayne probably not shadow directing this with McLaglen, but this is a Wayne movie, and he's just like, that's how I do it. That's how America does it. That's how we make our movies.
We'll fix it in post.
We fade to black with our scenes. But that's why this is so frustrating. There's some scenes where there's a bit more blood than you'd see in a typical John Wayne Western, and that's clearly a response to the relaxed censorship. But the film never fully commits to being a revisionist, modern Western either.
No, it doesn't feel, like you mentioned, the plot itself is pretty compelling, but the execution feels like it just holds itself back from being the kind of film that can redefine a genre. Because it is pretty emotional to think about a more grounded story focusing on the family drama, but you don't get that in production. You don't get that in the in how the look and feel of the film, which is already a disservice.
Completely agree. Nothing is more evident of this too in the score, composed by Elmer Bernstein, a legendary accomplished composer. Some of the most famous film scores of all time. I'm thinking The Magnificent Seven, The Great Escape. There's so many others. This is not one of them. It's a lively score, but it's cheesy. It feels like something from 1953 versus 1973. That's another thing, too. Film scores in the 70s really changed. You're starting to hear, guys like Quincy Jones are doing a lot of scores. You get John Williams really takes off in the 70s, obviously. His scores feel like a lot of, much more modern stuff. You're getting a lot more electronic elements that you're hearing in film scores in the 70s. This is, again, it was just out of time.
Yeah, it's true. It's just a bit outdated.
Definitely feels caught between eras.
And I think that it's probably fine. And this is just me thinking about it from the perspective of the studio, or even just from John Wayne. Putting out a film like this, there are going to be fans. There are going to be holdouts that just love this, that just love this aesthetic. And it's just enough.
I'd love to hear from them, because if any of our listeners truly love this film, please write in and tell us. And by the way, I don't dislike this movie. I don't think anything in this was outright bad. It just felt so stale by 1973, this type of film. Well, let's talk the last reason about I think there are really good ingredients in this film. I mentioned the opening 20 minutes. I really enjoyed how this film gets off to a start. I like John Wayne's performance, frankly, a lot. I was surprised because I read he stopped caring during the production. I don't see that on screen. And then George Kennedy as our villain, he plays Frazier. He's awesome.
Such a turn for Frazier. So he had this role, and then Frazier goes from being just pretty diabolical villain with the emotional manipulation,
cold-blooded killer.
And then he goes on to just become a radiotherapist in Seattle. Different Frazier, folks.
That's a good answer. Okay. Kennedy is great. We love George Kennedy because of the Airport movies. In this house, he's a hero.
Yes.
Not Frazier, but George Kennedy. I forgot how many, like all the different stuff Kennedy could do. I think he's a really compelling villain. I actually liked his two other gang members too. I thought they all three of them like really worked as villains. They're the best thing about this film.
They keep it going with how they seem to be the spark that keeps the tension going. Even if the tension is pretty lukewarm, they really do keep the plot going.
I had forgotten how well Kennedy could play a villain because you kind of see him. You remember him from the airport movies. You remember him from like The Naked Gun, or he won an Oscar for, of course, his performance in Cool Hand Luke. He's an Academy Award winner. But I forgot, he could play the bad guy really well. Like you think about it, much earlier in his career when he's in Charade.
Mm-hmm.
He's great in that as the guy with the hook.
He looks a little bit like Don Nelson.
Yeah, but he's really good here. He's definitely my favorite thing about this film. Morgan Paul plays Struther, his second in command. I recognize him from Blade Runner, the guy that gets shot in the beginning.
Good call out.
Yeah. Dan Vaddis plays Brownie, the other bad guy. And then, not a bad guy, Neville Brand plays Lightfoot.
So, anything noticeable about that role?
Yes, he's playing a Native American character. I do not believe that the actor was Native American. It clearly looked to be dark makeup. I wanted to shout out this actor, though, Neville Brand, highly decorated World War II veteran.
Yep. Shouts out.
He's in Tora Tora Tora. Again, how this film feels a little out of time. I thought that was largely over by 1973, the brown face. That was naive, very naive on my part.
Well, I think if we actually trace it even to the 80s or the 90s, brown face still happens too.
Yeah, you're right. Do you remember our discussion on Quantum of Solace? And it's technically in that movie. They put Olga Kurylenko in dark makeup because she's supposed to be Bolivian.
Yeah.
That was 2008.
Or even 98, International Man of Mystery, technically, Will Ferrell.
Yeah, but I think, was that just supposed to be a joke?
I mean, it is supposed to be a joke. Yeah.
Not so that
you think about it a bit differently.
I'm not defending it, but
no.
You're not supposed to take anything seriously in Austin Powers.
Or probably the most in-your-face version of this.
Gary Oldman in Tiptoes?
Well, I was going to say it was going to be Robert Downey Jr. in Tropic Thunder, which is
quite different, though. Purposefully parodying it.
But still the most extreme version I've seen.
The most extreme version, but I think very different.
You could argue the most artistic version.
Yes, and he was parodying it.
Yeah.
Simple Jack? Oh, yeah, man. You went all out on that one.
Have you seen the behind the scenes where Downey's still in character?
I sure have.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh. It's so funny.
Incredible. It's tremendous. Yeah, Neville Brand. I do like the character of Lightfoot, brown-faced jokes aside. I like the performance. I like his chemistry with Wayne. I'm gonna be careful when I say this. I think it's a well-written character despite the portrayal.
Yeah. I'm not touching this, so go.
I did enjoy some of the dialogue. There's a line that stood out to me. So Cahill asks when his son will recover from an illness. He goes, "You sure, Doc?" And the doctor said, "I would bet my brand new Chicago-made leg amputator on it." It's like, okay. Any of you want to surrender?
Us? What does he say? He's a sitting duck.
Yeah.
I don't know how he gets out of that.
Well, they don't show it. They just cut.
Well, you know how he gets out of it. He's dual wielding, like you said, a pistol and a rifle.
He does that in a lot of his movies. He just kind of uses a rifle with one hand, which I don't know if any of our listeners have ever used a rifle. It's pretty hard to use with one hand. I wouldn't advise it. You can't aim very well.
Maybe if it was a sawed-off shotgun.
I still think even then you'd want both hands on it. You're supposed to fire a pistol typically with both hands. You don't have to, but not that I'm looking to Cahill U.S. Marshal for a highly realistic depiction of gunplay.
Mm-hmm.
So there's something else worth, I think, highlighting about this film. There's a scene, Cahill admonishes his son for his racism.
Mm-hmm.
There's a scene where Cahill admonishes his oldest son for his racism. His son is making comments about Native Americans. This was written into the script as a response to the ongoing criticism of Wayne's infamous 1971 Playboy interview. And this film apparently did very little to dispel that perception.
It's have you read the whole interview?
I have.
He says some pretty outlandish stuff.
It's one of those interviews where I just don't know what anyone was thinking. Like, was he advised to do that? Was it his idea to say that stuff? I mean, obviously, it was obviously his idea because they're his words, but I just don't know what he was thinking or not thinking.
Yeah, I'm. We're not going to include this in the episode, but he verbatim says, "I believe in white supremacy."
We can include that. He said it in the interview.
Yeah, and like, I don't. What?
I don't know.
Yeah. And that's just one part, by the way.
It's just one sentence.
Yeah.
Do you know what was the overall purpose of the interview? Was it to promote a specific film, or was it just Playboy just wanted to interview John Wayne?
I don't know what the premise was. Yeah.
By the way, that is confirmed on IMDb. That is the credit for Vance Davis's character.
Oh, cool.
Yep. There's other credits for Old Man, Hard Case, Valentine Station Master, Storekeeper, Leader of Bunch, and yeah, the Vance Davis character. There's a character in this film named Pee Wee Simpson.
That's pretty funny.
We're really running out of things to say about this film, aren't we? It's just kind of a nothing burger of a film. It's not that interesting. It's not bad, but it's not that interesting.
It's not that interesting, and it just fits into enough of the mold of what made this genre popular, and of course it features John Wayne, so it gets that much more legitimacy as a Western.
Even though it has very little legitimacy as a Western.
An interesting paradox, isn't it?
It's what?
Interesting paradox.
It is an interesting paradox. I have to say, the reason why I don't think it's a bad film is there was at no point during the film did I regret picking it. That hasn't happened very often on this podcast. I mean, there were several points during Exorcist 2 where I was just like, what are we doing? What am I going to say about this turd? But I didn't feel that way about Cahill U.S. Marshal. So unless you have anything to add, you just want to give our ratings, we can get out of here.
Let's do it, Pilgrim.
I found this fairly forgettable, fairly underwhelming. Yeah, like I said, I don't think it's bad. There's nothing particularly creative or culturally significant about this. I think if this had been released 20 years prior, it would have been better remembered. It looks like a product of 1953 rather than 1973, and that's probably the biggest flaw. John Wayne's age aside, I think he's pretty good in the role. There's nothing offensively bad in this film other than maybe that credit for Vance Davis's character. That's pretty bad. I enjoyed this more than I thought I would. I really started off watching this prepared for it to be outright terrible. It certainly isn't that. George Kennedy is a great bad guy. He's very menacing in the role. His two sidekicks are as well. They're my favorite thing about the film. I think the story itself is an interesting premise. If the execution is just kind of lackluster, I would not go out of my way to watch this again on my own. It's something I would watch if it were on with others. I can't imagine a group of people I would watch films with would ever put this on, but if they chose to do it, I would watch it with them. I'm at a C or a C minus. Help me out here, Anton, on how to rate it. I think it's it's a very average movie. It's mediocre.
I really do have to just think about rewatchability as kind of the biggest factor here. Even though I'd only seen it a couple times at this point, it already feels very tired. And that's not great if I've already seen it only once. I think a bit of that is just, it doesn't feel inspired as a film. And it's interesting around this paradox of the legitimacy of this film as a Western really is grounded in John Wayne being our main character and George Kennedy being a very strong villain. Otherwise, this film does not feel like a true Western from the Golden Age. It just feels like a bit tired. It was released in theaters, but this is probably much closer to a direct DVD production. just because of the lack of quality. But it's not necessarily a horrible film. It just doesn't feel like it had the execution to really live up to a more the interesting plot that we'd really gotten on paper. I probably lean more towards a C minus, just because I don't have a ton. Like I think that it's less interesting with the pacing and some frankly very questionable decisions on just how the story plays out. But I don't think it's a horrible film. I think like it's just pretty below average.
I'll officially say C minus, and I agree with everything you just said. Also, one thing I forgot to add. So during the finale of the movie, right, which is kind of just, again, pretty underwhelming if we're being honest. It just takes place like in like a random wooded area, right?
Yeah.
Did you chuckle at how many bullets it takes to kill all of the bad guys?
Pretty funny.
Like, how many times does George Kennedy's character get shot? 6? More, maybe?
More than that.
He gets shot off his horse, right? With a rifle, I think, right?
Probably just needs one bullet.
Cahill hits him in the back with a rifle. He falls off his horse. That would probably kill most people, I'm guessing. And then it takes a few more bullets to kill him. In the back, in the chest, a couple times.
George Kennedy's like, he's the Terminator.
He's the Terminator. It was very funny, and it shouldn't have been funny.
And we've been talking about Westerns. Have you seen any Westerns in the modern day that have really caught your attention?
How modern are you talking?
Like even in the 2020s, the 2010s.
When did Hostiles come out?
That was the 2010s, I think.
Okay, that might be my answer.
Because like now I think of like now the 90s had a few really fun Westerns, of course.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Unforgiven, Tombstone.
Yep, Unforgiven,
yeah.
Maverick.
You might be alone on that one.
Have you ever heard? I don't think you've seen this one. Have you ever heard of Old Henry? It stars Tim Blake Nelson. It's an indie film. It's actually really, really fun. If you could find a copy, I'd highly recommend it. I'm not going to spoil the film, but it's probably it's probably on my list of more underrated films. But it's a neo-western. It's really fun.
Oh, Ballad of Buster Scruggs, I would throw in there.
Yeah, very different Western.
Very different, yeah.
Yeah, very different Western. But even for Tim Blake Nelson, that's one of the reasons why I actually even like watched this film, is because someone had told me, "Oh, do you know that he was in another Western other than Ballad of Buster Scruggs?" I'm like, "No, I want to check this out."
Now, it hasn't come out yet, but I am looking forward to Steven Spielberg's upcoming film after Disclosure Day. He's apparently making a Western.
Yeah.
And in his own words, it's going to kick ass.
All right.
So I look forward to that.
I don't think a bunch of people remember this film anymore, but it's pretty fun. Rango.
Yeah, I enjoyed that.
Yeah. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, technically a Western. Oh, I mean, what was that came out about 20 years ago? I really liked 310 to Yuma.
I was going to say that 310 to Yuma, that's a really good one.
Bone Tomahawk? Oh.
I don't think anyone actually enjoys that. If you actually enjoy that, someone check on that person.
Yeah, that's yikes.
Wild Wild West.
I suppose that's technically a Western.
Shanghai Noon.
Yeah. Well, that's it for Cahill U.S. Marshal. Not a ton. We usually say, like, do you recommend this? I mean, I kind of don't. If you're going to watch any John Wayne movie, don't pick this one.
No, this would not be one of the classics collection.
Because it's not bad enough like McHugh or Brannigan where you can laugh at it. It's okay. It's just very average. It's not Mitchell. Well, yeah, that's enough about Cahill U.S. Marshal. That's it for this edition of Why Wasn't It Better? Thanks for listening, and see you next time.